There's a moment, usually about an hour after the last town disappears in your rearview mirror, when the road stops feeling like a road and starts feeling like a tunnel through nothing. The yellow lines blur into a single hypnotic stream. The radio dissolves into static. And your brain, starved for stimulation in the endless dark, starts to play tricks on you. That shadow at the edge of the tree line is probably a deer. That pair of headlights that's been following you for 20 miles, probably just another traveler heading the same way. That person standing on the shoulder with their thumb out in the middle of nowhere at 2 a.m., well, you tell yourself they just need help. Tell yourself you'd want someone to stop for you. You tell yourself a lot of things to justify pulling over. But the 3 stories I'm about to share with you come from people who did pull over. They stopped. They opened the door. What got into their cars or what was already on the road waiting. For them changed their understanding of what's possible in the dark spaces between cities. These are 3 true accounts of highway horror. Turn up the volume. Lock your doors. And if you see someone on the side of the road tonight, just keep driving. I'm your narrator. That's right. This first story comes from a man named Ethan, who was driving home from a work conference in upstate New York to his home in Pennsylvania. It was late November, the kind of cold that seeps through the car windows even with the heat blasting, and the roads were slick with a thin layer of black ice. He'd taken a backroad shortcut as GPS suggested, one of those state routes that cuts through miles of dense forest and farmland with no streetlights, no houses, and no cell service. It was around 1:30 a.m., and he hadn't seen another car in over an hour. He was tired, running on gas station coffee, and the desperate desire to sleep in his own bed. Then his headlights caught something on the shoulder ahead. A figure, a person, standing just at the edge of the asphalt, thumb out in the classic hitchhiker pose. Ethan's first instinct was to keep driving. It was a guy traveling alone. It was the middle of the night, and every horror movie he'd ever seen screamed at him to not stop. But as he got closer, he saw that the figure was a young woman. She was wearing a thin, white dress, completely inappropriate for the freezing November weather, and she was shivering violently. She wasn't wearing shoes. Her feet were bare and dirty on the cold asphalt. Ethan's conscience overrode his fear. He slowed down and pulled over about 20 feet ahead of her. He rolled down the passenger window and called out, "Hey, are you okay? Do you need help?" The woman didn't answer. She just walked toward the car. Her movements were stiff, almost mechanical, like she was learning to walk for the first time. She opened the back door and not the passenger door, the back door, and slid into the seat directly behind Ethan. He couldn't see her in the rearview mirror. She was sitting perfectly in the blind spot. He asked her name. She didn't answer. He asked where she was going. Silence. He asked if she needed a hospital. Nothing. The only sound was her breathing, a wet, labored, rasping sound that seemed to fill the entire car. Ethan started driving again, his hands gripping the steering wheel so tight his knuckles were white. He kept glancing in the rearview mirror, trying to angle it to see her face. Every time he adjusted the mirror, she seemed to shift just enough to stay out of view. The temperature in the car plummeted. He could see his own breath frosting in front of his face, even with the heat on full blast. And then he smelled it. The smell of wet earth, of rotting leaves, of something that had been buried and recently dug up. It was overpowering, cloying, sticking to the back of his throat. "Where are we going?" he asked again, his voice cracking. And finally the woman in the back seat spoke. Her voice wasn't a voice. It was a sound like wind blowing through a hollow pipe or water gurgling down a drain. "You know where?" Ethan's foot slammed on the brake. The car skidded on the black ice and fishtailed to a stop in the middle of the dark highway. He spun around, ready to scream, ready to fight, ready to do anything. The back seat was empty. The door was closed. The seatbelt was still buckled. But the seat was wet, soaking wet, as if someone in a waterlogged dress had been sitting there. And on the window, written in the condensation, were 3 words: "Not far now." Ethan didn't remember driving the rest of the way home. He arrived in his driveway at 4 a.m., shaking and pale, with no memory of the last 2 hours of the drive. He checked the back seat. It was dry. The words on the window were gone. Convinced himself it was a microsleep hallucination, a waking nightmare born from exhaustion and too much caffeine. But a week later, he was cleaning out his car and found something under the back seat floor mat. A single, small, smooth white stone. The kind of stone people leave on graves. He threw it out the window while driving across a bridge. The next morning, it was back under the mat. He's thrown it away 7 times now. It always comes back. He doesn't drive at night anymore. Our second story comes from a woman named Jenna, a traveling nurse who spent most of her life on the road between rural hospitals. She was used to long, lonely drives. She had a system: audiobooks, a thermos of tea, and a strict rule about not stopping at rest areas after midnight. She was driving through the high desert of New Mexico on Route 44, a long, flat, straight highway that seems to go on forever with nothing but sagebrush and red rock mesas in the distance. It was around 11 p.m., and she was making good time. The road was empty except for her little Honda CR-V. Then, in her rearview mirror, she saw headlights. They were far away, just 2 tiny pinpricks of light on the horizon. She didn't think much of it. Trucks use this route all the time. But she noticed, after about 10 minutes, that the headlights were closer. Lot closer. He was going 70. That vehicle had to be going 90, maybe 100 miles an hour to be gaining on her that fast. She moved to the right lane to let it pass. The headlights kept coming. They filled her rearview mirror, now too blinding. High beam lights that turned the inside of her car into stark white daylight. She squinted and slowed down, expecting a semi-truck to roar past her. It didn't pass. It just stayed there, 2 car lengths behind her, riding her bumper on an otherwise completely empty highway. She sped up. She slowed down. It slowed down. It slowed down. She could feel the vibration of its engine through her seat, a deep guttural rumble that seemed to shake her bones. She tried to get a look at the vehicle in her side mirror. The headlights were so bright she couldn't see anything behind them, just a wall of white light. But she could see the shape of the truck. It was big, old. A long-nosed cab like something from the 1970s, with a grimy, rusted grille. There was something wrong with the windshield. It looked cracked, not like a rock hit it, but like something had hit it from the inside. Jenna's heart was pounding. She grabbed her phone to call 911, but she had no service dead zone. She was completely alone with this thing. The truck behind her suddenly blasted its horn, not a normal horn. It was a long, distorted wailing sound, like a train horn mixed with a human scream. It went on for a full 10 seconds. Jenna screamed and pressed the accelerator, pushing her little Honda to 90. The truck stayed right behind her, matching her speed perfectly. Then, without any warning, it swerved into the left lane and pulled up alongside her. Jenna looked over, expecting to see a trucker. The cab was empty. The driver's seat was torn and stained, and there was nobody behind the wheel. The truck was driving itself. On the passenger seat, she could see something, a shape, looked small and dark, hunched over like a child or a small adult, and it was turning its head toward her. She didn't wait to see its face. She floored it. The Honda's engine screamed as she pushed it past 100. The truck fell back, its headlights shrinking in her rearview mirror, until they were just 2 pinpricks again, and then nothing. She drove like that for another 30 minutes, shaking and crying, until she saw the lights of a truck stop. She pulled in, parked under the brightest light she could find, and just sat there until sunrise. She told the cashier inside what happened. The old man behind the counter just nodded slowly and said, "You seen the ghost hauler? He runs Route 44 on nights with no moon. He's looking for someone. Been looking since '78. Folks say he was a trucker who fell asleep at the wheel and killed a family in a minivan. Now he just drives. Don't stop for him. Don't look at him. Just get out of his way." Jenna requested a transfer to a different region the next week. She only works day shifts now, and she never, ever drives on Route 44 after dark. Our final story of the night comes from a user named Kevin, who was driving cross-country from California to Florida for a new job. He was on day 3 of the drive, somewhere in the endless, flat expanse of the Texas Panhandle, when his bladder started screaming at him to find a bathroom. It was around 1 a.m. He hadn't seen an exit with services for miles. He was starting to consider the side of the road when his headlights caught a sign, "Rest area 2 miles." He breathed a sigh of relief. He took the exit. A long curved ramp that led down into a depression surrounded by thick, scrubby trees. The rest area was small and old, the kind that's just a single brick building with vending machines and fluorescent lights surrounded by a small parking lot. There was one other car in the lot, an old beige sedan parked under a broken light. No one was inside it. Kevin parked, got out, and immediately felt a wave of wrongness. The place was too quiet. No hum of the highway, no wind, no crickets, just dead, oppressive silence. And the lights inside the rest stop building were flickering not in a random broken way, but in a steady, rhythmic pattern. It's like a heartbeat. On, off, on, off. He walked toward the men's room entrance. The door was heavy glass with a metal push bar. He pushed it open and stepped inside. The bathroom was clean. Too clean. It looked like it had been scrubbed recently, but there was a smell. Under the bleach and the industrial cleaner, there was a faint, sweet, rotting smell, like something had died in the walls. He used the urinal quickly, washed his hands, and was about to leave when he noticed the mirror. The entire wall above the sinks was one long, grimy mirror. He looked at his reflection, tired, disheveled, ready to get back on the road. But behind his reflection, in the corner of the mirror, he could see the door to one of the bathroom stalls. And the stall door was slowly opening. He spun around. The stall door was closed. He looked back at the mirror. In the reflection, the stall door was now wide open, and there was a figure standing inside the stall. A tall, thin figure, completely black, like a 3-dimensional shadow. It had no features, no face, just a void in the shape of a person, and it was looking directly at him through the mirror. Kevin's breath caught in his throat. He couldn't move. The figure in the mirror raised one long, thin arm and pointed at him. Then it took a step forward, out of the stall, toward the mirror, toward him. Kevin's paralysis broke. He ran. He burst out of the bathroom, across the parking lot, and into his car. He fumbled with the keys, started the engine, and peeled out of that rest area without looking back. He drove for an hour, his heart pounding, before he felt safe enough to pull over and catch his breath. He checked his phone GPS to see where he was. The rest area wasn't on the map. He zoomed in. Nothing. He checked the odometer and backtracked the miles, according to his location. There was no rest area there, just empty, flat scrubland. The next morning, he stopped at a diner for breakfast and asked the waitress about the rest area on Route 297. The waitress's face went pale. She set down the coffee pot and leaned in close. "Honey," she said quietly, "there ain't been a rest area on 287 since the 1980s. They closed it down after a drifter killed 3 people in the bathroom, stabbed him, and just left him in the stalls. Bulldozed the building. There's nothing there now but a patch of dirt." Kevin finished his breakfast in silence, drove the rest of the way to Florida during daylight hours only. Stops at busy truck stops now, never the quiet rest areas. He says sometimes when he's driving late at night and he passes a sign for a rest area, he sees a flicker in his peripheral vision. A rhythmic flicker, like a heartbeat. And he keeps driving. And that's where we pull over, engines still running. But I think we've all had enough of the dark highway for one night. 3 drivers, 3 roads. 3 encounters that prove the world outside our headlights is stranger and hungrier than we want to believe. Ethan picked up a hitchhiker who left a gravestone in his back seat. Jenna was chased by a truck with no driver and a passenger that wasn't human. And Kevin stopped at a rest area that had been bulldozed 40 years ago but was still open for business. The next time you're driving alone at night and you see a figure on the shoulder, or headlights that won't pass, or a sign for a rest area that seems a little too quiet, remember these stories. Remember that the road doesn't care if you make it home. The road just is. And sometimes, the things that live on the road are just waiting for someone to stop. Don't be that someone. Keep driving. If you made it to the end of this trip, you've earned your rest. Smash that like button. It helps this channel keep its headlights on. And if you're new here, subscribe and buckle up. We've got a lot more miles to cover, and the stories only get darker from here. Now, tell me in the comments, what's the creepiest thing you've ever seen on a late night drive? I read every single one, and trust me, some of the stories in the comments are scarier than anything I could ever narrate. Until next time, keep your tank full, your doors locked, and your eyes on the road. And whatever you do, don't pick up the hitchhiker. Not the one in the white dress. She's still out there.